Welcome to the 18th session, where we are creating a global well-being curriculum to meet the new goal of education. For this, we are using ancient wisdom of 5,000-year-old texts of what is now known as Indian knowledge system, but what was always an international knowledge system. This session studies how Indian knowledge system's study of elements makes humans rise in Maslow's need hierarchy by transforming the subtle within all of us. So IKS transforms attitudes, values and competencies, which are all subtle, and these, according to OECD, are the core of well-being. The sensors, all the sense perception, that what is our current knowledge system's first way of knowing, they are only looking at the outer world, and this outer world has a habit of that it keeps changing, and the IKS uses the inner world and tries to awaken the voice of conscience. Now, the voice of conscience is a stable basis of making judgments, and this lies within individuals, while the current knowledge system has an unstable basis as it lies outside the individual, because the outside world has a habit of changing. All phenomena keep changing. Look at these videos. After the 2008 crisis, many lost their homes and jobs. Then OECD found that prosperity, which education sought to create, has not led to well-being. How do you think ideas of IKS can be integrated with the current knowledge system to fulfill the new global goal of education, that is of creating well-being? We will take a 5-minute break here for you to write your answer. What concepts can help integrate Indian knowledge system and current knowledge system to create well-being? Maslow sees a human tendency to become actualized. We seek self-actualization. That is, he defines it that what we are potentially, we seek to actualize that potential. Indian knowledge systems reveals that what is the potentiality of human. That's what its goal is, to make us aware of that. To make Maslow's model complete, the idea of transcendence has been added. Hoffman is quoted as describing it as a happy ever after stage. Movies and novels say it is a physical reality. IKS states it's an experience of being in bliss. It is not a changing state of mind. So what is Maslow's idea of transcendence? I quote, "As self-actualized individual gets to be more purely and singly himself, he is more able to fuse with the world with what was formerly not self." Unquote. The idea of self-actualization or truth of one's potential being selfish or self-centered is essentially wrong in ancient wisdom. Maslow realized this. Maslow is quoted as saying that he was always uncomfortable with self-actualization when he introduced transcendence. He says, and I quote, "Going through my notes brought this unease to consciousness. It's been with me for years. I meant to write and publish a self-actualization critique, but somehow never did." Unquote. There are many reasons why this advancement of his thought never got well known. This may be because the ideas came between 2 heart attacks, one of them fatal. Also, he was busy with duties as president of American Psychological Association. Also, his findings were published in a little-known journal, and his personal journals were not published for some time after his death. Finally, the idea of transcendence is linked to spiritual and Eastern ideas which are considered mystical. Maslow calls transcendence, and I quote, feelings of limitless horizons opening up to the vision, the feeling of being simultaneously more powerful and also more helpless than one ever was before, the feeling of great ecstasy and wonder and awe, the loss of placing in time and space with, finally, the conviction that something extremely important and valuable has happened, so that the subject is to some extent transformed and strengthened even in his daily life by such experiences. Unquote. The basic idea of transcendence is that of Indian knowledge systems. It is an experience. Three things are part of the experience. One, the experience of helplessness is the concept of being reduced to zero experience, or shunyata of Buddhism. The second thing he says is the idea of infinity is the realization of our infinite potential. Third, its most important aspect is its transformative quality. Points 1 and 2, that is zero and infinity, lead to transformation of personality with development of character. This is where current knowledge system and Indian knowledge system finally merge. Matt Davis says, and I quote, transcendent experiences are the focus of such a wide variety of world cultures, notably Eastern cultures and shamanistic traditions, that it would be an omission to ignore such a pursuit from any model of human development, like the hierarchy of needs. Unquote. Any CKS or current knowledge systems claims of having applied or realized the model are not supported by evidence of mental health. Current knowledge system cannot claim or cannot provide evidence that transcendence has been achieved. Else, the evidence of mental health would be supporting it. A crisis in mental health is being reported by journals today. Also, 2008 and 2020 crisis threatens physiological belongingness, esteem and cognitive needs. To enable aesthetic needs and OECD's well-being or Maslow's self-actualization, Indian knowledge systems evidence will show the way to fulfill the new global goal of education. Well-being results by rising in the need hierarchy. What concepts enable this? How do they relate to the 5 elements? How to create a common understanding of current knowledge system and Indian knowledge system? The first question asked will be, how do the elements co-join? What results? The elements co-join as per Indian knowledge system to create the 3 qualities, the 3 gunas. The element of earth mixed with water is our body composition. It contains the subtle element of fire that gives the desire to fulfill a purpose. The nature of the purpose is decided by thoughts that pour out of the clouds of thoughts. The well-being idea of self-actualization or aesthetics transcends these as it emerges from the ether or sky. The lower order needs are fulfilled by sense perception that humans share with animals. Maslow's later work defines transcendence as that which, and I quote, that which seeks to further a cause beyond the self and to experience a communion beyond the boundaries of the self through peak experience. Unquote. This is Indian knowledge system's idea of selflessness. When thoughts are emerging from the desire of transcendence, they motivate human actions towards absolute balance of Advaita. When thoughts emerge from self-actualization, they lead to dynamic balance of Vishishta Advaita. At the onset of creation, Indian knowledge system sees primal energy separating from consciousness. The eternal wisdom, The eternal witness is consciousness. That's the source. It's only an eternal witness. Earth is the ultimate stage of materialization and is the basis of our sense perception. Human bodies, when life leaves them, are consigned back to this element usually. Our bodies are also composed of water. Water has a property of falling down. Fire has a property of rising up. The mind is filled with thoughts that are passing like clouds. Thoughts of survival fall down as rain, leading to fulfilling daily needs. The fire of wisdom, of jnana, ignited by education, should make thoughts rise up beyond the clouds of doubt to realize consciousnness, which is hidden in ether. This requires transcending the mind and the sense perception as per Indian knowledge system. In current knowledge system, Maslow calls it transcendence. The ideas are similar, only Indian knowledge system gives the way to do it using 5 elements and using the body, the mind and the energy principle, and it activates them through the process of education. To make it simple, Indian knowledge system makes rising in Maslow's need hierarchy as simple as getting up from the ground and sitting on the chair. The diagram shows the stages of rising in the hierarchy of human needs given by Maslow and lists similar steps to rising up and sitting up on the chair using Indian knowledge system's ways of knowing. Just as OECD discovered, society will remain sitting on the floor or at the lowest order of needs of Maslow's hierarchy if it uses sense perception as the first way of knowing truth. The animal kingdom too uses sense perception to satisfy its physiological needs. The use of comparison as a way of knowing, if done from the sense perception route, will only lead us to compare our wealth with the neighbor's wealth. It will not focus on the desire to compare our present work with our past work, to measure how much value we have added or the extra excellence we have created. This leads to a focus on conspicuous consumption and overuse of nature's resources. The first step in Maslow's hierarchy and Indian knowledge system's ways of knowing is sense perception. It is used to satisfy the basic needs of food, clothing, etc. Once basic needs are met, step 2 and 3 of satisfying our cognitive needs use Anumana and Upamana way of knowing in IKS. However, all 3 of them are guided by the 4th way of knowing, Shabda Pramana. The voice of conscience guides how to fulfill basic and cognitive needs. Step 2 and 3 then imply that humans stand up and climb the chair. To jump up and reach the source itself is transcendence of Maslow that requires Shabda Pramana of Indian knowledge system to fructify itself. The excessive focus on creating wealth for oneself instead of creating excellence filled with goodness for all in society leads to skewed distribution of income and wealth. The rich tend to become richer, exploiting those who lack access to education, skills, or other factors of production, including capital. Their understanding of competition is to maximize personal gain, as was done in 2008 by those who sold risky derivatives to customers. They were rewarded with bonuses, and their idea of competition was based on how much more they earned from their peers. There was no consideration for the value that was being destroyed in society as a result of their actions. Indian knowledge system does not belong to any one academic community but to the whole world. It subsumes the idea of current knowledge system, giving them meaning and direction. The explorations of IKS are meant for all, irrespective of class, nationality, gender or caste. All human bodies, it believes, are composed of the 5 elements. Just as it is the natural right of each human being to breathe air, a similar natural right exists to explore the nature of one's own being. Indian knowledge system does not controvert research of science. It only gives depth to their work. Current knowledge system has created a lot of prosperity. Indian knowledge system will give evidence of well-being created in a microcosm of society using its ideas. Its focus is not to deny prosperity, but to give it meaning and direction of well-being. Its ways of knowing have a different point of origin than in current knowledge system. Inference, Anumana and Upamana comparison are ways of knowing of Indian knowledge system. IB curriculum does not include Anumana and Upamana in its ways of knowing. But this has not stopped scientists and researchers from using them. In fact, a lot of prosperity in the world has emerged due to their use. The inferences drawn in current knowledge system and comparisons made are subtle too. Does this negate the basis of difference between current and Indian knowledge system? Not at all. An integrated approach of Indian and current knowledge system helps. Despite the work of Maslow, the 77th president of American Psychological Association, why has 2008 and 2020 crisis threatened the first 3 levels of his needs hierarchy? Why does evidence of a mental health crisis prove that the higher order needs too are not being met? Can current knowledge system help achieve both prosperity that lower order needs require and well-being that higher order needs now demand from education? The 12th session of ours had asked a question: what concepts can integrate Indian and current knowledge system to create well-being? Maslow sees a human tendency to become actualized in what he or she is potentially. To make this his model complete, the idea of transcendence has been added, a happy ever after stage. Movies and novels say it's a physical reality. IKS says it's an unchanging experience of bliss. The 2008 and 2020 crisis hit our physiological belongingness, esteem and cognitive needs. To enable aesthetic needs and OECD's well-being or Maslow's self-actualization, IKS evidence will show how to fulfill the new goal of education. Let us add Herzberg's hygiene factors and motivators to Maslow and Indian knowledge systems. Indian knowledge systems would say that the wavering human mind mistakes itself as coming from the air principle, having a right to change. That's what it likes to believe. The mind can change, so it must be air moves. So the mind also moves with the air. So as it is floating above and as clouds, it gets attracted to the hygiene factors in the physical reality. It gets distracted from the inner motivators, whose roots, its roots are then in the world. Indian knowledge system states that Herzberg's motivators are within the human being. The hygiene factors are in the outside world. If importance is given only to hygiene factors, the roots of the human are in physical reality only. Hygiene factors are needed, but an excessive, selfish, myopic focus on them ignores the source of motivators within. If the mind's large base is on inner motivators, its dynamic balance is like a spinning top. The Vedas of Indian knowledge systems are said to have roots in the sky, from an elevated mind as shown here. Indian knowledge system rests on activating the inner motivators, giving them a larger base. Its roots that is the roots of Indian knowledge system, are in quantum reality. Hence they transcend air principle to reach consciousness of bliss. That is how dynamic balance is created, and inner dynamic balance understands the dynamic balance in the cosmos, just like a spinning top is in a dynamic balance. We have seen in an earlier session that the cosmos is in a state of dynamic balance. It is the energy principle that starts and maintains its dynamic balance. The importance of hygiene factors for humans is not denied in Indian knowledge systems. The body is sustained by food. The energy produced is directed to exploration of essence and energy. Let us return to the simplicity of Indian knowledge system. It makes rising in Maslow's need hierarchy as simple as getting up from the ground and sitting on the chair. If comparison is guided by keeping up with the neighbors, this is a sense perception based view. It leads only to fulfilling social status needs. After that, current knowledge system leads to a dead end. For all the inferences drawn are again guided by sense perception. They lead to heightening the extent of social inequality. Hence, the human being may be in stage 3 of Maslow's hierarchy, but the use of sense perception is not allowing him or her to stand up as per Indian knowledge system's ways of knowing. Only when inference is sought about A, what is the human essence, and B, what is the nature of study of limits that keeps all creation in balance, that humans will be able to stand up to climb up the chair of Indian knowledge systems. When Anuman and Upaman are made with such a focus and not the way used currently, can the subtle human essence be discovered. The revelation of the subtle human potential is guided by the intellect that guides the wayward mind. It gives the distinction between right and wrong, helping it make choices. It is the nature of human choices that reveal the self-effulgent nature of bliss that all of us have within us. These choices are made by the human mind only if it is guided correctly by education. Indian knowledge system has a set of practices that reveal this truth about the individual to himself or herself. Speaking the truth and indulging in righteous conduct are the first two among these practices. They are the foundation of the curriculum of education that creates well-being along with prosperity. Rising in Maslow's hierarchy in Indian knowledge system rests on answers to the question, who am I? The answers to who am I are asked and investigated by all. The possible answers of Indian knowledge system to this question are shown here. One answer is, I am the body, or am I because of life breath? So we can start by asking, am I the body? Or am I because there is a life breath that I can breathe, there is pran inside me? Or I think, hence I am. Or am I the mind? As the mind keeps changing, some may say, why I am not something that keeps changing. I may say, I am the intellect which guides all. Or am I something more than body, mind, intellect? Am I eternal? To rise in Maslow's need hierarchy, Indian knowledge system traces the source of all elements as they work within us. I am just the body, so I will fulfill my greed. This kind of attitude limits experience of our source to water and earth. But energy or life breath, the fact that we breathe, is more important. It activates the mind, which we wrongly feel is part of air and is like the moon. The intellect is like the sun, spreading light to lead us to the source, ether. So we feel the mind is not like clouds, the mind is like the moon, which can reflect the sun, which is the intellect. So the light in the moon reflects the sun. So the mind is shining because of the reflection it gets from the intellect. So that is how the sun and moon are used as symbols in Indian knowledge system. To rise in the hierarchy, we must first satisfy the food and safety needs. Indian knowledge system agrees, but it uses the fire for sacrifice. So what is to be sacrificed by us? The use of the inner fire shown by the exhaling life breath. When we exhale, we can feel our breath to be slightly warm. That's the fire principle. So what is the exhaling life breath sacrificing? The breath sacrifices the 6 inner enemies like greed, anger, delusion, envy, etc. The mind, which moves, is now moved under the chair of nature. So you can call it sir. If you call anything which is bigger than you as sir. So if you call nature as sir and you are under the chair, so this is the surrender or the surrender principle shown in the awe of nature. When we are a true scientist is in awe of nature. So this awe of nature is this surrender, which is what reveals the secrets which are being explored, this attitude of humility. The intellect does not seek to violate nature to seek its source. We are not trying to violate the laws of nature to get to the source. We are trying to align ourselves with the laws of nature in Indian knowledge systems. If the path of surrender is not easy as the mind is always active, there is an alternate route in Indian knowledge system. The fire of inner quest, how to guide it. The question, who am I, is strengthened by the sacrifice of the 6 inner enemies through self-observation, self-analysis and self-discipline. This route makes thoughts rise up through the air that we assume the mind to be. Heat of the inner quest rarefies the air or the mind, making it subtle. Repeated question, who am I, clears the clouds of doubt. The sun of intellect then is seen clearly, shedding light on the source of bliss that resides in ether within us. In Indian knowledge system, rising in Maslow's hierarchy comes through a quest of who am I or who is the source. We take the example of Bhriguvali, the story of Varuna's son. The Lord of Water sends his son to find out who am I or who is the source. The answers given by him are slow realizations, one leading to the next. They tally with Maslow's hierarchy and are shown in the chair here. Varuna's son rises from fulfilling basic needs by saying food is Brahman, Annam Brahman. And then he concludes in the end that it is breath, towards the end, that it is breath or pran. Then he goes further and says, no, it is the mind. And finally, what is it? It is that which can discriminate between right and wrong. So that ability is the real me, which can discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. If that ability is not there, then it is not me. Then there is no distinction between me and the animal kingdom. All this came to Varuna's son, the story in Bhriguvali, through a lot of penance, through a lot of practice. And practice is the way of Indian knowledge systems. This course lays a deep emphasis on practice. Every attempt is made to make all the lectures very short. A 5-minute slot at the end of this lecture is being given for silent sitting. This is to enable the participant to mull over what is said. Whatever has been heard should be repeated in the mind so that it gets absorbed. Just as sugar is stirred in a cup of tea or coffee with a spoon, use the spoon of silence to stir the sugar of Indian knowledge systems in your mind. It takes some time for the tea or coffee to become sweet. Patience is very important. The perspectives shared in the course will seem meaningful only if such silent sitting is done to mull over what has been said. Else, the half an hour spent in delivering the lectures will be a waste of time. We welcome you to undertake an inner journey during these 5 minutes. Only then will knowledge that is outside you will become wisdom inside you. The time allocated for this is actually 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. The time should be increased gradually. This is also a time for the mind to take rest. In case it cannot do that, mull over whether the voice of the conscience has guided you at any time in life till now. We accept challenges for the physical body in games. In a gym, we can have a 20 minutes plank challenge. We may exchange challenges on the quantity of food we can eat. Can we go beyond such challenges to the second step of the Indian knowledge systems? Can we see if the mind itself can take rest and maybe stop working? Can we explore what will happen if it becomes zero? Remember, it is not good to challenge the mind. It rebels and makes you do the opposite of what you want it to do. It is far simpler to observe the mind. For doing this, first the physical body should move as little as possible. Observe the mind as it tells the body to move. You are not telling the body to move, the mind is telling the body to move. Observe the mind. Move away from the mind and see what it is forcing the body to do. Watch the mind as if you are sitting on a fan at a distance. When you are at home, Shavasana in yoga is a good posture for this practice. Try to first silence the body, then the mind. For those who have mastered this, they can try the next method. When you think of nothing, can you experience love without giving it a shape of a thing like your favorite food or a thing that you want to own or the physical form of a person? Can it just be love without an emotion to a person or a thing? Can it be love for the sake of love? How do you experience loving yourself? The purpose of this course is to help you discover yourself, that loving being beyond the body and the mind.